Welcome to Retirement Ain't Easy. I'm Chuck, your host, and today's video is an album of the month. We're going to go over one of the albums I picked out that has a little story that goes with it. So let's get to it. So back in the day, way back in the day, my best friend and I were always trying to one-up each other with our vinyl purchases. And we were always trying to find a band that neither one of us had heard of and try to impress each other with that band, buying the vinyl and then playing it for each other. So my high school best friend Bill introduced me to a number of bands that I had never heard of through this little competition that we had. Genesis, for one, was the first band I heard from him, and it was Wind and Wuthering, I believe, was the album. And we went on to go see Genesis. That was the first concert I went to, was the Wind and Wuthering tour for Genesis in Austin, Texas. Judas Priest, another one. He introduced me to Judas Priest via the Sin After Sin album. And I think we actually went and saw Priest on that Sin After Sin tour when they were opening for Powerhouse, also Austin, Texas. So my best friend Bill, we were big into music and vinyl, and we were always trying to one-up each other. And many times, to try and find an unknown band that neither one of us had heard of, I would go to what you call cutout bins in stores. And cutout bins, back in the day, if a record wasn't selling, a record store or a department store would take the albums and take a notch out of the album and stick it into a bin and basically put it on clearance sale. I have an example which I bought. This is an old Marshall Crenshaw album. Excuse me, I do have a cold. I've had a cold for weeks, but this is an old Marshall Crenshaw album, and I don't know if you can see right here, down at the bottom, there's a little notch out of there. They would clip that out, and then they would stick this album in a record bin, and you could usually buy it for $1, sometimes even less. It just depends on how long it sat there. So that's an example. So I would always go to the cutout bins because it was usually albums that never sold really well, and we would try to find things that neither one of us had ever heard of. So I found an album one day in the cutout bin. And it doesn't have a cutout. I was lucky enough to find it, but it was on clearance, and I think I bought it for $1. It's Americantears and Powerhouse. Now I bought this. This album was released in, I think, April '77, and featured keyboards on it. But anyway, it was released in April '77, and I believe I bought it in late '77 or early '78, probably more likely. And I bought it in a store in Killeen, Texas. That's where we were living at the time, on Fort Hood. I don't believe it was a record store, maybe a store like Stereo World. If you ever heard of Stereo World, there used to be one in Killeen there. But it was in a clearance / cutout bin. I picked it up and I looked at it and I thought, okay, it's okay. The band, Americantears, I found out later, was a New York-based band that had formed in the early '70s, and the main driving force was Mark Mangold, the keyboardist. He later went on to play with Michael Bolton and Cher, and let me check my notes, Paul Rogers, Laura Branigan. So anyway, the band released 3 albums, and then they broke up in 1978. So this was their 3rd album they released. And they later reformed in 2018 and released 3 more albums, with their last one being 2020. You can find them on Facebook. Americantears is on Facebook, and you can actually find an old video of one of the songs off of here. I think it's Last Chance for Love. There's a video on YouTube for that song. But I took a chance buying this album because if you knew me back then, in the 70s, I was not a keyboard guy. I didn't really listen to a whole lot of bands that had keyboards, like Uriah Heep and Yes and those kind of bands. I really didn't. So it was sketchy, but I went ahead and bought it. Turns out this is a really good album. Great songs, great melodies, great rock. So I bought it less than $1, or probably around $1. Took it over to Bill's house, put it on his turntable. We listened to it. I had already listened to it a number of times, so I enjoyed the album. And he didn't think it was that great. By that point in our relationship, Bill had moved on to bands like Budgie, Hawkwind, and I was still listening to other stuff. But I still play this album a lot. I pull it out and put it on turntable and listen to it. It's a great album from a pretty good band. Pretty good band. They put out, like I said, more albums. I don't have any of the other albums they put out, but their last album they put out was 2020, and they never caught on, so I guess they've kind of disbanded again. So anyway, those are great memories I had with Bill. Like with 78, 79, those are our junior, senior years of high school. Great time for music and great time for growing up in Killeen, Texas. So that's why I picked this one as the vinyl of the month. Powerhouse by American Tears. Hope you enjoyed that. This is a little series I do, album of the month. Every time, first day of the month, give or take a day, I'll put up an album of the month. And usually there's a story that goes with that album. A lot of my albums that I picked up, I can think back to when I bought it, why I bought it, what was happening at the time when I bought it. So, hope you enjoy this series. This is number 2. I did this back in 2024 when I first started my channel. I did probably January, February, March album of the month, and then I kind of dropped it, let it die. But I brought it back here in 2025, and I'm going to try to keep it going. This is my second one. If you missed January's, click on the vinyl of the month tag, and you can find those. Hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. This is Retirement Ain't Easy. I'm Chuck, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace.